You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices with Vicki McManus-Peterson and Dr. Chad Johnson.
Welcome to part 2 of Everyday Practices conversation with our guest, Vincent Cardillo. Last week, we talked about the smart ways to expand your practice and how to integrate DSOs. This week, we're diving into best practices you can do to set yourself up for expansion.
So what happens is once we get all of this administrative clutter off of the doctor's shoulders, right, and that we're now freeing them up to focus on what the most important thing is growing your people from the clinical side. So the DSO stuff is all about, this administrative stuff and savings. I mean, I don't know, you're saving 20% on something that is 5% of your expense. That's not that big of a deal. Right. So, look, dentists can compete with DSOs pretty easy because they're not that great on the clinical side. Not that they don't want to be, they try to be, and they are much better than some single offices. But if you're a small group, you can calibrate your docs and you can grow your docs better than they can because they're just so big. Not that they don't try, they do a great job. And all of the good ones have these systems in place. They try to do it.
And I brought that up with someone that was trying to, and Vicki, you remember this, they were saying, hey, join our club and we'll have savings that rival the DSO. And I remember asking, well, if my budget is 5% and you can save me, 30% of the 5%, really that's 1.5%. So you're changing my bill 1.5%, but you're going to charge me X percentage.
3%.
Exactly.
Yes. And really, so then and thank you for saying it and not me, because I'm not supposed to, but it basically just offset itself. And now I'm using the lab that I don't want to use, even though you're not dictated to have to use that lab, but come on.
Right.
So
the goal is to clear the doc off of all this administrative crap that they're buried in. Because in stage 2 to 3 offices, it's the worst stage, and it's when all the shit happens. And it's when the doc is running around from office to office. And if that owner doc is not in that office producing, then that office doesn't make money. And they're in this crazy...
Because they're the rainmaker.
Exactly.
Right. So let's talk about that then. I had an example just this past year that I was looking at a town up the road, and it would be a 10-minute drive. So it was awfully close. And from this office, it's 10 minutes south and the other one is 10 minutes north. So they're far enough away from one another that I thought, okay, this is going to work. And I'm working about 24 clinical hours a week right now. And so I thought, you know what, if I just work harder, and I'm not against that. So what I'll do is I'll invest 20 hours over into this new office and we'll stagger the dates. And I don't care how we do it, 1 week there, 1 week here, or every other day, or we hide them, or afternoons there and mornings here. I don't care how we do this, but let's see if we can make this work. I had an elaborate Excel file. I went through and I calculated out, okay, what's it going to cost me to go into this new location for all my fees, not fees that I'm charging for dental services, but what are going to be my expenditures for the startup? Let's pretend like I'm a startup business and I was just going to do startup at this office. Okay. And almost pretend like I'm 2 separate people, but even see if, okay, maybe I could borrow the same website. So have the same regional brand. And then carry it over to this new place, have an LLC for that, but maybe even at first borrow some employees over to it and make it work. And when I added it all up, and I was really excited about this, and man, the location is just booming. I mean, so to me, it's not a problem of, is this place dying, or could it afford another dentist? Vinny, the answer is it just is ready. It already is ready and it's prime. And I just feel like not doing it is allowing someone to just have the green light to pick up some awesomeness. But I also wanted to balance in my life Maybe, I'm not a 25-year-old new graduate with no family and no personal life. I've got those kinds of things that I need to make sure to balance. And Vicky also said, Chad, why don't you clean up your act at your business and have it rocking all the better? And because when I got to the end of it, I was just, so I thought to myself, okay, how much money more could I earn from this? If I'm putting all this venture on the line, what am I getting out of it? And I did a 10-year projection on it. And I was just like, holy moly, I'm not even making any more, but I'm working double. And I think I would just be, kind of, I might double the pay or something like that, but is that worth that extra effort? And what I settled upon earlier this year after we did, man, it was, Vicky, you remember, it was a month of hot and heavy on trying to figure out.
We arm wrestled it.
Oh, really?
Yes, we did. And we were going through, and I figured out I've got a year left before I'm debt free. And I just thought, you know what, first things first, why don't I get my house in order? And then I'll be more risk averse. And for me, I'm already risk averse anyway. I don't care, let's do it. Let's shoot from the hip. But then, watch out world, because a year from now, it just might be like, pew, pew, shooting from the hip, baby. So Vinny, what are your thoughts when you hear all that? Like if a doctor came in and he's telling you this kind of stuff, it looks like from your facial expressions, the podcast listeners might not be able to see it, but you're just going, dude, do it.
So, I have to ask some other questions, right?
Sure.
So one of the first things that anyone that wants to really get into multiple practice ownership, I think you really have to be I don't know if the word is excellent clinician. I would say an excellent clinician in the sense that you have a lot of experience. You understand that have taken many CE courses. You've done, whatever they are, Dawson, Coy, Spear. I don't know who the hot ones and great ones are today that have increased your ability to look at a new patient differently and are able to treatment plan at a different level. And you are someone that produces 1,000 an hour.
So great. I'm none of those.
I'm
just kidding.
Okay, great.
Chad is all.
Great.
Chad's a grand slammer. He's all of those things.
So that is the most important, because the future of your success is going to be your ability to grow other doctors. The crap that I do, anyone can do. I just know how to do it because that's what I do.
Right.
But once that's set there, the trick is growing other doctors. So I'll end up with a group that's got like 3 locations, and the head doctor, produces $500 an hour. And I'm like, we're screwed here. How it's not often that you're not,
because you're not going to inspire your associates to outproduce you.
Well, Vicky, this can be dangerous because, as you know, sometimes some of the most educated guys overthink all of their treatment plans and their presentations, and they might be producing less than the guy that's just willy-nilly fixing a composite here and there, unfortunately. But there is a positive correlation overall when you look at multiple clinicians that those that up their game in their CE and their awareness are going to be producing better, especially when they can bring the soft skills to that too.
Let me ask you this, Chad. I've never asked you this before. How many treatment plans do you create per patient? New patient comes in. How many treatment plans do you give them?
The final one, by the time we print it? Yeah. At most 2.
Okay. So you don't have a plan A, B, C, D,
no.
E?
No, because I've already read them on their face, like when I say, well, listen, do you want to go down the denture route, or is that like totally in your capability in your mind, or do you want to just throw that off the table? Because I'm willing whichever. Do you want to save your teeth? But we're at a fork in the road. You have to decide. Do you want to save them, or do you want to pull them? Because that's going to determine how the rest of this conversation is going to go. And if they say, you know what, my mom and dad, just this last week, no lie, Vinny, I'm in Iowa, and as if it happens everywhere else too. But they said, you know what, my mom, my dad, they both have dentures. I was thinking when I was coming in, it's been 10 years, we should talk dentures. Well, then no reason to go down to, do you want to use gold onlays and I'll print out one treatment plan for that? Or do you want to do CEREC onlays, and we'll print treatment plan for that. So at most 2. And the 2 is when I say, you know what, I want to give you a high ball option and then a nice and easy option. And, I'll shoot for the moon. If you don't want it, no big deal. And so at most 2. Well, Vicki, what are you thinking when you hear that?
Well, what I'm thinking is that you just backed up what Vinny said. If you're not that kind of guy, and this is what I see in you, Chad, you're that kind of leader. And by leader, that word is so big and overused, but you are the kind of doctor, if I were a young doctor, I would come in and follow you. I would say, this guy's in the trenches. He's been there. He's done that. It makes sense to me. It's worked for him. And until I can get to your level, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to do it at that level. If I come out of school doing $275 an hour and you're doing $1,000, you bet your biscuits I'm going to do what you're doing, right?
You bet your bacon.
You bet your bacon, man. Otherwise, I'll get swine flu. Bad things are going to happen. So I think to Vinny's point, inspired clinical leadership. And I saw that, I created the hardest model. If there was an easy button, I took it, I threw it out the window, it got run over by a truck. I'm a non-dentist living 2,000 miles away, trying to impact clinical care. So even though I'm a hygienist, even though I've seen it for 1,000 years, even though I had a partner who was a dentist, that is the hardest piece that you have to understand before you start growing multiples. And you've got Dr. Emily is fantastic.
She's doing great. You know what? Carrie, my coach, Vinny, my coach was here just this week, and we had a team meeting just this morning. It's a Friday morning, and we were going over all of our stats and stuff just briefly, because that wasn't the discussion point. But she said, do any of you around the room know what Emily's producing? And they were like, no. And they said, Chad, guess. And I said, 450, 500. She said, this month she's over 700 an hour. And I was like, are you serious?
Wow.
No, Vinny, she's 1 year out of school.
That's great.
It is great.
But how many new patient exam chart audits have you done with her?
400. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? No, we do one every few months.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you did 10 a month, she'd be at 850.
Right.
Right. So the sooner that you get her to 850, the sooner you can have your other office if you want to have another office.
Ooh, that sounds like a line in the sand.
A challenge.
Dad. I love it. 850. Dr. Emily.
Because you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And you've got a written standard of care.
Look, when you talk cookie cutter, your cookie cutter world is growing dentists to 850. That's that's the only thing that's cookie cutter in your world. The rest is what your office looks like.
Reality.
Because you'll have pictures, you'll have colors, you'll have a brand.
Well, so let me ask you, Vinny, let's say someone is thinking small, and I don't mean it in a mean way, because small is good for them, but they've been running their practice for, let's say 25 years, they're doing just fine. And they think, why would I run 2 offices? It's going to be twice the headache. Or why would I run 5 offices? It's going to be 5 times the headache. Now, for some people that's going to be true, but there are others that can balance 5 plates on a spinning stick just the same as they can spin 10 on a spinning stick, and it's not any harder. What is the aptitude difference? Aside from some of the stuff that you've already mentioned and trying to get to the second office, but when it compounds, it's not necessarily that these people are working 100 hours a week or 300 hours a week, if there was such a thing. I mean, you can only work so many hours in a week. So how does someone get to 10 offices? There must be an advantage to how their aptitude plays and performs with their clinical skills.
Well, I mean, some of them, not everyone is playing clinical director role, right? At a certain point, which again, by 10 locations, you really need to pick if you're going to be the chief dental officer, the CEO, and potentially you should hire a third party to do that, because you need a clinical director to grow your dentists. And if it's not you, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, but you might be able to find someone else. But I haven't really seen the success in third party clinical directors having more impact than an owner dentist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure I heard you right. Pick a lane. You can be the chief executive officer, run the business, be the business guy. If you're a solo dentist looking to get to 10, choose your lane. I want to be the CEO guy, or I want to be the clinical director. And in your mind, if you're a strong clinician and you've got a passion and vision, you're better off being the clinical director and hiring a business guy to run the business
Right,
side.
or a good operations person that to deal with the crap, right? You can have a bookkeeper deal with the numbers, but having someone to give you, the layout, and that's
Right.
where we're valuable, is because we've seen it and we've done it a million times, that clients don't have to make the mistake, right? It's just like, do this, do this, do this. We're going to set it up. This person's going to handle this for you. They're going to handle this for you. We're going to watch them, hold everyone accountable, so you can focus on finding new locations and growing doctors and working with the hygiene coach to grow to hygienists. And that's it.
So let's say you were working with Chad,
Yeah.
and he's got a great gal, Kayla, right?
Mm-hmm.
On your team, and you were having these conversations with Kayla every week. So she
Right.
grew as the group grew. What kind of conversations would you be having with Kayla if she was running operations? What kind of stuff
Well,
does
I mean, so let's say Kayla was overseeing 3 offices, right? So there would be 3 team leaders, right, managing those offices, if you would.
Okay.
Again, this whole world is about building people, right? CJ is building the dentists in clinical, and Kayla, right, that's her name?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be growing the team leaders to manage those people, right? It's all about
So-
continuously growing people.
Yes.
So Chad could be helping Kayla right now today by helping her. Well, she's working with Carrie, so she's understanding the numbers and how the business works, but classes on conflict resolution,
Yeah.
classes on human
Management.
resources, management, team building.
All the stuff that is not at the dental shows.
Right. All the stuff you got to go to Dale Carnegie to get.
Right, exactly. Dale Carnegie courses. Even I think they have is it some management institute, the American Management Institute, where they have stuff online. Just
Right.
general 101 management courses.
Yeah.
Right. How to deal.
Finance 101.
Yeah. Find just what is a profit and loss statement, right? And why don't we? You should be sitting down with that person and the bookkeeper to look at the profit and loss statement every month, and it should make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, you need to get your accountant in there to help it make sense. But you're working with these guys, so you have.
Well, put in general terms for the listeners, if a person doesn't have enough aptitude with that, you start then questioning if that person is either undertrained or that they're trained enough, but they're just not going to be able to perform at the level that you need them to, which naturally will happen. I mean, you grow people into leadership roles, but there comes a point, aside from the president of the world, that people only have such an aptitude. You can only maybe be the governor of a state, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the best president for the country.
Right, exactly.
And that's the biggest mistake I see, is that people are promoted
Above their
by time. Yeah,
Right.
she's been here
Yeah.
the longest, or family relationship. She's my mom. I can't fire her,
Yep.
right? Or my brother, sister, cousin, something like that. Or I can't fire her because, fill in the blank. Single mom, older, this or that. But they really. So maybe you
It's a big
invest,
problem.
but it's a great thing though. If you're solo and you're thinking about going multiple, invest and take them where they can go, and then say, you know what, you might be a great location manager, and this is where I'm going to grow this, and I want you to be my liaison with this other operations person. That's a great point, Chad. Well, we are, we're well over 30 minutes into this.
my
I could
God.
go for like
Sorry
another
about that,
hour.
yeah.
We should have
Well, we got
turned it
to
into a.
we got to ask though, the
session.
trend, bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum. DSO is taking over the world.
Yeah.
And the little guys are going to get wiped out. I don't see that doom and gloom. How do you see
I
the
don't know.
market?
Well, the numbers are the numbers, right? So private equity, which is basically Wall Street money, is in dentistry, and more private equity firms are getting in every month. The last count that I've heard from, industry people is that there's 80 something private equity firms that are all investing dollars and that have to grow. So it's not going away. Think there'll be some bumps in the road because some of these guys are paying a lot of money for these practices, and there are there are failed private equity deals out there, but they're kept under the.
So it's a good time to sell.
Yeah, it's a good selling time for sure. And look, the DSOs are growing at 12 to 13% a year. Single offices are growing at 3 to 5.
Okay.
So if you do that math and you continue to extrapolate it, at a certain point, you catch up.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So
now let's say that even someone wants to hold out. Someone says, that's nice and all for you, but I really am in my comfort zone. If they wanted to maximize against, and I don't mean you, because you're not trying to take over the world per se, but if someone in Iowa is up against some private equity firm of a DSO and they're here in Des Moines and they have a single office and they don't want to grow to a larger, but there are going to be those listeners out there that are that type of practice, and they're comfortable where they are. If they want to make sure that they're managing themselves the best, it sounds like investing into their administrative side, investing into making sure that their HR and team building is growing to maximize everyone's potential within the office, knowing their stats, and also building relationships with their patients.
Yeah.
100%, right? You just stay ahead of the curve. I mean, if you're one office, you have to be great, right? Just be great at what you do, and you'll always can compete against them. I mean, and there's a lot of people saying, well, I won't be able to compete. Of course you can compete. You just be better. You should be able to be better than the DSO, right? Because they've got some associate in there or someone who got some phantom stock that thinks they're a real partner and they're not.
So if you were, let's go on the other, we've been talking like on the front end, if you're young and you're going to be an associate in this, or you're an owner and you're thinking about growing, but let's flip it for our listeners that might be in their late 50s or 60s, kind of in my age group, and they're thinking about exiting, right? So what are our options now in exit planning for the solo doctor?
So for the solo doctor, obviously DSOs have the money and they'll pay more. So you have to be over $1 million for sure.
Okay.
Right. That's your first threshold where DSOs start looking as, okay, this is someone we really want.
Okay.
So that's the important thing, is make sure you get over $1 million.
Any certain number of patients or charts?
No.
Or just $1 million?
Yeah.
What about EBITDA? Does it matter?
No, because they're going to buy off of EBITDA, but
right.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Okay. So be over $1 million.
So you want to be over $1 million, and you want to sell at the top of your peak. You don't want to sell when you're starting to decline.
Right.
Because because now you're out. You're not going to get the extra. And again, a DSO is going to pay you more. However, they're going to want you to be around for 3 years.
Okay.
Right. So that's one of the things, like docs are thinking, hey, I'm going to sell and I'm done next year. Well, if you've got a great practice and you want to get the most that you can for it, just plan working 3 more years and you'll get a higher valuation.
So if I want to retire at 60, I should start thinking about selling around 55 and make sure I get my deal done by the time I'm 57. Give myself a year or two to shop it around.
Yep.
So what if I don't want to go that route, but I find a great young doctor like Chad who wants to move to my town and buy me out?
That's perfect. Chad will probably pay a little less.
Okay.
Right. Because just the way the numbers are. And a lot of doctors do that. There are doctors out there that don't want to sell the DSOs, but when the money comes up, then the minds are usually changed, which happens.
So would you do it like if you were selling to a younger doctor, would you do it all up front, or would you do it like 49% now and I'm going to hang on to control for a year or two and teach you my stuff before I let you have the whole thing? Or
so you're saying if someone's selling to a dentist that does not have a practice.
Right. Like I'm the owner and Chad says, I want to come in and buy your practice. Is it better to sell it all today?
Yes.
Or to sell half of it now and half of it later? Or
I mean, you want to sell it all now to get your money. The only reason why you would want to hold on to it is if you had some upside where you can make more money.
I see.
Right. But if you held on to it, now you're in the game. And now if you're selling it to a young person that this is their first practice, and you're holding the paper, well, you may end up owning a dental office in 4 years now.
Right.
Because they can't pay it back. And now you're 68 living in Hawaii and you own this dental office in upstate New York.
And you got to go back and run
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Or
sell
you
it.
close it and now you only got half your money.
Okay. So you sell it and then you figure out if you want to stay on, be an associate and continue working or just be
Well,
done.
if you're going to work typically with the DSOs, they need providers.
Right.
So you're going to work it. But on the other hand, if you're going to sell it and you're a single provider,
Right.
well, there's not going to be room for both of you.
Maybe I just do the sleep apnea.
Right.
Or implants or something more complex.
So if you did some of that, then you could hold a little bit of the note because you know you're still going to be there.
Yeah.
But if you know you're out the door, I would try and get all your money.
Okay.
Vinny, I have another question too, since we're just picking your brain and hitting you from different angles. Fee for service versus PPO involvement. You look at the bigger picture, and when I've been on a board before, they talk about the 30,000 foot view, and then they up the number to the 60,000. I even heard at one point it was conflated, and someone came in and said, if you look at it from the 100,000 foot view, and I've just thought that number always seems to grow. But
look at it from Mars.
Yeah, look at it from Mars. No, planet, whatever. So when you look at multiple offices, do you ever find it convenient or congenial for that practice, expedient for them to use fee for service, or is it always PPO because that gets you more patients? How do you utilize PPO, and do you look to try and get to fee for service? They're two different beasts, and how do you work with those?
There's not many groups that are fee for service only.
Right.
There's just, I'm trying to think if, I've come across maybe a couple with 2 and 3 locations, but it's so hard to do because the doctor that's been able to do fee for service has been so entrenched in that community.
Yes.
It's taken them 20 or 30 years. And 20 or 30 years ago when they started, insurance wasn't that big. So they started with that and they continued and they marketed strong. They were a good producer. They were in the community and they got themselves to a point where they didn't need it to be successful.
Yeah.
But to do multiple locations, you just need it.
So if someone were fee for service, they come to you and said, all right, I'm ready to sell out. Would you foresee that you're going to have to switch them to more PPO to get the new guy? Or is that you just have to look at each scenario? Do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah. The goal would be that we would bring in PPO, but in a situation where the practice is, a pretty big practice, we would have to evaluate the insurers because let's say they might have 20% of their patients have Delta.
Yes.
So if we automatically went to Delta, we might get a couple more patients, but I know our revenue is going to go down because now we have to take Delta's fee schedule.
Yes, that's right.
Right. So we would evaluate. We would say, okay, let's take on MetLife where there's 0.5% patients first.
Right. Yes.
Right. Let's do some more marketing. Then let's bring on, I don't know, whoever, United, whatever insurance, that's 2%. Right. We would not go after our big player right off the get-go.
Right.
So it would be a managed event.
So if you were already on plans, you've done what you could to clean up your plans, you've dropped the really horrible 40% haircut, you're at manageable levels, and you were thinking about expanding, can you say, because I get this question a lot, and Chad and I have wrestled around this too. I want to expand and drop my insurance plans. Is that possible?
Well, it doesn't make sense. See, look.
It's a question though.
Yeah,
but it is.
But the fee for service works great for the sole provider.
Right.
That says, you know what? I only want to work 24 hours a week, so I don't want all the other stuff.
Right.
And I can be busy fee for service.
Right.
Our world is like, okay, you're working 24 hours, which is 3 days a week. What about the other 3 days a week? Suppose we did, I don't care if we got 30 cents on the dollar.
I need Wednesday through Saturday covered.
Yeah. If you got 30 cents on the dollar and you literally make a 5% margin on that, it's better than nothing.
Right.
You're not working.
Right.
Because you're an associate and a team doing it. Who cares?
Right.
Right. Obviously, they've got to be delivering the quality care. That's a given.
Right.
But so at the multiple group level, it's like, okay, you do what you want to do, but get someone else to do the rest.
So
Because
cool.
you're going to make a nickel.
Yeah, exactly. You're making a nickel.
And instead of a penny,
Nothing.
instead
Exactly.
of nothing.
I mean, even if it's $2,000 a month, I mean, think about what you could do. I mean, but it's usually way more than $2,000 a month anyway. So
I wish our listeners could see this because Vinny is like lit up like Christmas morning. He's so excited. And Chad is just like,
Eating it in.
Dude, yeah.
he's going to go sign that lease tomorrow.
Look at that. He's got a page and a half of notes. All right. You're going to go. So I hear, Chad, I think we'll bring Vinny back when you get Dr. Emily to 850. So
By next month.
By next month. So all of our listeners are going to go, Dr. Emily. They're like going to be chanting her name, rooting for you. Emily. They're going to be rooting for you. And then we'll bring maybe Emily back with Vinny.
Yes.
Right? I mean, let's start with the, what was the word that you used on the treatment plans? The calibration.
Calibration. Yes.
Start with the calibration exercise on new patient exams. That will be, because what's going to happen is the issue lies in diagnosing. We did a complete study on this. It's not technical, it's diagnosing. So when you go through this process with her, she's suddenly going to diagnose more.
Right.
And because she diagnoses more, she's going to produce more.
Yeah. Which is why CE works really well, because you're more aware of what you could do to help smaller problems that otherwise would have missed your eyeballs.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Well, Vinny, thank you so much for allowing me to just drop in and knock on your door and find you at home today. This has been awesome.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you guys for having me. I can't wait to hear what Emily's doing next month.
Thanks so much, Vinny. It's nice to have met you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with everyday practices.